Hello, Liam Segarian here. Look, another fan letter. Dear Liam, what can DNA do or tell us? From Bob. Well, Bob, DNA can tell us a lot about a criminal case. In fact, it is the #1 evidence solution in determining if a criminal is guilty or innocent. Now, if you come over here, I'll show you that I've already set up a nice presentation and infographic for you. To what extent can DNA analysis help in identifying a criminal if the record is not previously on file? Well, DNA evidence is one of the essential components to solving a crime. Every single person in the world has at least some uniqueness to their DNA, and this can be used to convict a criminal of their crimes. How far does this uniqueness go? Well, any two people on average can actually have 99.9% of their DNA similar, meaning that only 0.1% is fake, or not the same. It's still 3 million DNA base pairs that actually is in that 0.1%, which is more than enough to differentiate between two people. Blood relatives have more similar DNA, obviously, so telling the difference between two family members might be a lot more difficult. This is where that 99.9% comes into play. Collecting all available DNA evidence from a crime scene can take hours to days while the area is left open. This is to make sure that every single part of the DNA is picked up from the crime. There could be a fingerprint over here, there could be blood over there, there could be some other kind of spit DNA sample over here. All of it goes back to tracing back to DNA. Lastly, human error can always be accounted for when handling DNA evidence. Any small indentation made to the DNA evidence can really skew data when it's sent back for lab reports. So they have to make sure that everything is kept in controlled environments, no germs are contaminating it, all that stuff. So let me talk about the Innocence Project. DNA is not only for solving crime. The Innocence Project was founded in order to help wrongfully convicted felons get exonerated. That main evidence that they bring to court to help the criminals who reach out to them is DNA. So, DNA evidence makes excluding suspects from a case a lot easier than it would in a suspect's conviction. Aside from convicting or omitting criminals from a case, DNA evidence can also be used to exonerate people. The Innocence Project was created in 1992 and works to exonerate people post-conviction, where DNA is forced to be tested against the accused person's DNA once they reach out for them. So lastly, I'm going to talk about what DNA actually shows us, or what it can tell us about each person. The human body's genomes, which are DNA samples, encase traits that can help distinguish one person from another. When DNA evidence is collected, the traits expressed in genomes can be analyzed to get a better representation of that person that investigators will be looking for. So, the genomes, they're a complement of genetic material, and they're encased in nearly every cell. And by the researchers, they are more convinced that labeling of race have little to no biological meaning when coming to these genomes. Genomes can actually tell us more about eye color and more about width of nose than they actually can about race. But race does play an impartial factor. But you remember that Innocence Project I was talking about? Let me show you another infographic that I made. So the Innocence Project, it's already up to about 300 exonerations from court. In 4,013 years in prison, an average of 13.6 years per exoneree so far. 73% of these people are black, and over 8,000 prisoners write to the Innocence Project expressing their case each year. There must be biological evidence, as mentioned earlier, which can come from semen, blood, hair, saliva, any form of DNA representation that can be found. It has to be there in order for that case to get exonerated. And that's all available. Prosecutors must consent to the DNA testing, or the court must order it. And testing must yield a conclusive result in order to exonerate the criminals. So, Bob, I hope I answered your question well. Thank you very much. This is Liam Segarian. Oh!